So in case you didn't recognize the music or the story, it comes from the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and it is the episode called The Sorcerer's Stone. Did anybody recognize the music and the beautiful? So in the Enchanted Wizards version of the classic board game, the chess pieces move of their own accord when commanded by the mind of the player. So if I believe that I am a pawn in the chess game of my life, the stress and strain of everyday living will be challenging. As a metaphysician, on the other hand, who is working in the spiritual realm rather than in the circumstances of the third dimension, where time and space play a factor, I know that my beliefs create my experience. So as a result, my thoughts, my feelings, and my emotions empower me to move my knight, my bishop, and my rook, and I create my own game of life. Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione must defeat a giant chessboard in order to get to the Sorcerer's Stone. And in the story, Weasley has to make a deadly move in order for Harry and Hermione to pass. So Weasley inherited a chess set from his grandfather, so he has the advantage because he knows the game and he also knows how to communicate with the pieces. The more we understand how the divine law works, the greater our capability of creation becomes. If our only desire is to enter into a checkmate state of consciousness, where every injustice is perpetuated against us, unless we win, then everyone and everything is going to be against us. Why? Because there isn't an opening within our belief system. And Raymond Charles Barker, in The Science of Successful Living, says that the world in which you function can limit you only to the extent that you are unable to prevent its conditioning. And we are taught that sometimes we have to make sacrifices in order to get ahead. We have to learn to play the game of life. We might hear things like, don't take it personally, it's just business. You have to work hard to get ahead. I'm sure many of you have experienced a lot of that. So Weasley sacrifices himself to the White Queen so that Harry can checkmate the White King, which is a pretty scary move because the losing piece is smashed to pieces by the winning piece. So although we might find ourselves in a compromising position, our experiences are always created through our thinking. We are not victims of our environment. Whether we remain in any particular predicament is totally up to us. We are the ones who evaluate the good or bad effects of our thinking. And in the opening song, J.D. Martin, who's the author, singer, songwriter, said that his friend would not be moved. So whether we stand for civil rights or gay rights, or we want to feed the poor, or we're trying to understand what happened in East Pittsburgh at the synagogue, the important thing to really understand is where are we in our consciousness? How are we engaging with the experiences that are presented? If we are standing in the place of peace, power, beauty, joy, love, light, and harmony, then the qualities of spirit become an integral part of our game. And that is what today I move towards gratitude, which is the title of my talk this morning, is all about. The higher power is impersonal. It doesn't play favorites. It doesn't judge. It simply awaits the recognition of our conscious mind. And we must turn towards it in order for it to turn towards us. We must know ourselves as that power in action at all times. Then that can happen if we're really willing to look at what was creating the experience, what drew it into us. The ability to think in a different way is totally our responsibility. We are the only determining factor within our experience. And the 18 inches from the head to the heart is the longest distance that we will ever walk. And that journey is really about the movement from fear into faith. Raymond Charles Barker again says that faith, vision, and right thinking unlock the door of consciousness and release the flood of creative thought. And that solar plasma influx of light is available right here and right now for each and every one of us. All we have to do is open the door of our consciousness. And creative new ideas are our most precious commodity. They determine the length and the breadth of our consciousness. In order for us to fully embody any new creative thought, our beliefs that are rooted in anger, fear, and resentment must be released. We live and move and have our being in an infinite field of possibility, within a universal subconscious intelligence that responds to our conscious demands. Scientists have now proven that we are not products of our heredity. So the idea of circumstances being beyond our control no longer exists. Spirit provides the original thought that creates through us. Our subjective mind provides the pattern through which we become what we choose. And most of us don't understand ourselves completely, but we're perfectly willing to tell everyone else what to think. Sometimes we even insist that they agree with us. And people will often tell you what you should think. But if resentment enters your mind, even for a moment, and you feel justified in your judgment of them, there's an old Chinese proverb that says, "He who seeks vengeance, better dig 2 graves." So everyone has the right to choose his or her own reality. We are who we are because of what we believe. If our reactions to one another are negative, we need to really think about why our buttons are being pushed. Raymond Charles Barker: the greatest spiritual understanding you can achieve is that of knowing that you can control no man, but that you must explore the depths and inner meaning of yourself. So everyone is exactly where they're supposed to be, doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. If you feel challenged by what they are doing, there is an emotional reaction surfacing from within you. And it's important to take the time to really begin to understand your own belief system. Ranting and raving about what other people are doing, harboring resentment, about your situation, or even complaining about the weather has an effect on your emotions. And it might take 50 years, but your subconscious mind must outpicture your beliefs. When my brother was just a little boy, Mama was single, and she went to work, and so she left him with the neighbor across the hall. And she would later learn that the neighbor across the hall was paying more attention to her son than she was to my brother. And my mother would tell that story over and over and over and over again. And 50 years later, she developed something called hairy cell leukemia. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's cancer of the blood. And cancer is created by unresolved anger and fear. So whatever is in your subconscious belief system will surface. There is a universal creative spiritual principle that operates in, through, and as everything and everyone. Now that concept was impossible for the sky god of my childhood. And I think that building a new belief system about that higher power is one of the most important journeys that we will ever take. We live and move and have our being in an inexhaustible universe. Just imagine how many leaves have fallen with all the wind that came through in the last week or so. The more we affirm the presence and the power of spirit in our lives, the greater our experience of living becomes. Our consciousness needs new ideas for growth. If we remain stagnant in our thinking and we hold on to the past, we become poor in our consciousness. If we remain open and receptive, we become rich in our experience. Either way, we are using the same law. Raymond Charles Barker. The growth of true spiritual understanding is dependent upon moving in consciousness from a tangible and therefore limited God to an intangible, unlimited mind. So as Hermione and Harry make their way across the chessboard, they look back for Weasley to see what is happening. But they don't stop. They keep moving right ahead. And the goal of life is to release our fears and to move into faith as a way of life. And this has a lot to do with the third chakra, which is just above the belly button. And that is your gut instinct. Your gut instincts will always protect you. They will guide you, guard you, protect you, and direct you at all times and in all places. But it isn't until we understand the importance of that support that we are able to surrender to the divine and allow it to move into our experience. So Harry represents the conscious mind. His sole purpose is to get back to the original thought, to return to the Christed self, to the I am that I am, to the ultimate creator that is within us that wants to play the game of life. And Weasley represents the subjective or subconscious mind, the creative medium where the thoughts and the ideas are all stored, where people move like we move the chess pieces. And that happens through the power of the mind. My mama used to always say, God gave you a brain, use it. So although Weasley has knowledge of the game, and he's good at interacting with the pieces, ultimately he must surrender to the higher power, which is represented in the story by the White Queen. And Hermione also represents the original thought. When all hell is breaking loose around her, she stands in the midst of fear without moving until she is called upon by Spirit to create a new game. So today I move towards gratitude as I surrender to the divine. I recognize its perfection through prayer and meditation, through the inner work that we're all experiencing. I open my mind to the ideas of spiritual expansion. What fun is reaching checkmate unless you play the game of life again? And the science of mind symbol on either side of me represents that involution of spirit and then the immediate evolution of spirit. From original thought down to original thought and back up again. Spirit wants to experience itself, and it does that by means of each of us. So grab your bishop. Start infusing it with spiritual ideas. Set the creative process into motion with your knight. And use your power to access the energy of love and light by integrating the pawn, that inner knowing, that light that is within you that wants to experience itself through you. And when you do that, we can all come together and create a world that works for everyone. Thank you, and namaste.